Hey dudes, today we're going to talk a little bit about Fallen Empires. Fallen Empires is infamous for being a set that almost killed Magic, and for being a set that sucks. This is kind of true from a certain point of view, but there is a little more to it, so let's jump right in. Fallen Empires came out in November of 1994 and was the fifth expansion set released. It was wildly overprinted, especially compared to other sets at the time, keeping supply high and demand low. Before Fallen Empires, stores would generally get around 10% of what they ordered. There just wasn't a whole lot of product to go around. This scarcity, combined with the uniqueness and fun of the Magic the Gathering experience, left many Magic the Gathering players with more desire for cards than access. And, like anything in life, people took advantage of this, hoarding product and selling it for a large markup. When Fallen Empires came out, it was the first set printed to order, and people were trained to order significantly more than they wanted, hoping to get what they actually wanted. When representatives of Wizards of the Coast talk about the situation, they say that they explained that this one would be printed to order to stores and distributors, which may be true. But I've also seen some store owners say that WotC said this about the Dark as well. So it's hard to know who's at fault for this situation, but I guess it doesn't really matter at this point. These cards were everywhere, super cheap, and people selling Magic cards ended up with more than they knew what to do with. This definitely had some negative consequences, but so many people focus on that aspect that I'd like to offer a different perspective. This set may have been hated by some, laughed at by others, but it was also the first set that a lot of kids had access to. Broke kids generally couldn't afford Magic cards, so many Magic players got their start with Magic simply because these cards were accessible. I think that's pretty cool, and there are a lot of people that have fond memories from this set simply because they could play it. I also think that the lore of this set is pretty cool, and it ties into the mechanics of the set pretty nicely. Fallen Empires takes place in a place called Sarpadia, a continent in the southern hemisphere of Dominaria. The events of this set happened between the Brothers' War and the Ice Age. As the plane cooled, Sarpadia faced some of the same issues we talked about in the Dark, with crops failing, land becoming unsustainable, and violence increasing. What makes the Fallen Empires interesting and a little different is that it isn't a battle between the empires, per se, but a battle within the empires. There were the humans of Acacia, the Order of the Ebon Hand, the merfolk of Voldalia, the elves of Havenwood, and the dwarves of Crimson Peaks. Each of these empires is associated with a color of magic, and each of them faced some sort of civil war. The dwarves, less of a civil war, but they were attacked by the orcs and goblins. The Order of the Ebon Hand ran into issues when they created thralls, which then rebelled and killed them, while the elves tried to solve the food shortage issue by making fungus people, called thalids, that I guess weren't just cool with being farmed, so they rebelled as well. The Voldalians also had issues with the cooling of the climate. The Homerids, a sort of Arctic species, moved into the waters that the Voldalians held as the plane cooled. And that was another war. The Acacians also had to deal with a splinter group called the Feralite Cult. That's why there are at least two creature types in this set for each color, to represent the various civil wars that were going on amid the cooling of the plane. And if you're curious how this all eventually turned out, the Thralls ended up winning, killing pretty much everything on the continent, other than the Thalids. The Thalids were also successful, and the two just kind of got along, I guess, which is kind of interesting. Oh yeah, and the Homerids ended up winning the Water War, but fewer people cared about that since they didn't live in the water. Anyway, I think that's kind of interesting. But this set often gets called weak, which I don't think that's really true. Now, there are certainly a lot of terrible cards in this set, but you could say that about any set, especially at the time. But there are a lot of cards in this set that are actually pretty valuable and worth considering, at least at the time. Acacian Javelineer isn't something I would call great by today's standards, but it gets to ping one thing. So this can remove like a Royal Assassin, or even just make blocking one of your other creatures a lot less appealing. It sees some old school play. Order of Leaper is also pretty strong, being a slightly worse White Knight that might be better because it can pump its power. High Tide, well, it's High Tide. This card is pretty fucking intense if you build around it. Basil Thrall isn't great per se, but if you drop this on turn 2, on turn 3 you can play a 5-mana card assuming you hit your first 3 land drops. I think this card is underrated, personally. Hymn to Torak, we don't even really need to fucking talk about here. This card rips 2 random cards from your opponent for 2 mana and 1 card. This thing is fucking cracked, but I mean everyone knows that. Order of the Ebon Hand is the Black Knight of this set, and because Necropotence would eventually exist, this card is even better than the white one. Soul Exchange isn't really a great card, but it is a reanimate that only costs 2 mana, and you do have to sack a creature, but it came out in the set with a bunch of token generation, so it's not terrible. Fucking Goblin Grenade is in this set. This card is fucking sick. You're gonna tell me the set that gave us Goblin Grenade is bad? Night Soil is a really interesting card that you can use to repeatedly fuck over the graveyard decks while giving yourself chump blockers or sacrifice fodder. Thalid is kind of looked at as a joke, but this thing is actually pretty sick. The tracking in this set is annoying as fuck, and Thalid kind of represents that well, but it is a 1-1 that makes another 1-1 every 3 turns, or more if you want to do like some proliferate shit or something. It's not super great, but this can get out of hand in a hurry if you aren't careful. Besides, nobody is gonna waste removal on a fucking Thalid. I guess it does lose to shit like Pyroclasm, but it's still a better card than people give it credit for. Thorn Thalid might be the best card to pick in Limited, and it's pretty funny to use. It's definitely slow, taking 3 turns to do anything, but in slow games, this is direct burn damage, in green. This thing can blow up your opponent's Thalid or any other 1-1. Now, we're definitely starting to reach the bottom of the barrel here, and I'm not recommending you, like, play this in Constructed, but it is very useful in Limited, which is really funny to me. In the same vein, Aeopile, or however that's pronounced, is surprisingly useful in 1v1 games, and I think Implements of Sacrifice is a little underrated. It's not super great, but it's decent. This is also the first set to have lands in it that aren't the worst thing you've ever seen or way too fucking good. The storage lands are not awful, especially at the time when the games were much slower. And the other lands in this set can be sacrificed to add 2 mana instead of just 1. This value is definitely mitigated somewhat by these lands coming into play tapped, and none of these are so broken that they would appear in Eternal formats, but these cards are not bad. That being said, this set plays fucking slow. Like, these games go on for fucking ever, and every fucking card in this set creates a different kind of counter that you can then exchange for something different, and the tracking in this set is such a fucking nightmare. It was so bad, they released a counter sheet in the Duelist to help you keep track of all this bullshit. The games are interesting, and the set does play well if you have the patience for it. But man, this entire set was designed around attrition play, which I guess is flavorful, and I've definitely had fun playing with only Fallen Empires cards, but it is an interesting experience. If you do ever decide to play a limited of this, black is obviously pretty good. White isn't terrible, but I've personally had the most success with green, usually splashing black, and I think I would avoid blue or red in this set. But if you open enough goblins, red can be pretty good, and Homarid is surprisingly fairly annoying to deal with early game, but if you have a Thorn Thalid, it's only a matter of time until that thing goes down. Fallen Empires is a very interesting set in its own ways, but I can also see the point where it does kind of suck. I appreciate it existing, and I will probably play Limited of this set again because I do find it really fucking funny, but the games do take a long fucking time. I also really enjoy the art in this set. I mean, I say that about every set, but it's true of this one too. There are some fucking really hilarious pieces. Like this version of Homarid by Mark Tadine. This is so fucking funny to me. The live Homerid reaction. I love this so much. Another one that is just a standout to me is Amy Weber's High Tide. This is gorgeous. There are just so many pieces of art in this set that are interesting or fun to look at or help tell a story that's quite compelling if you want it to be. In the end, I will say that Fallen Empires is everything that people think that it is. But it's also so much more. Either way, that's all I have for you today. So you can like the video if you liked it, you can subscribe if you give a shit. But either way, I hope you have a magical day. Thank you for watching.